Obinna Anusiam is a Nigerian born, based in the US, precisely in California. He is the CEO and co-founder of NGX, which stands for Nigerian Exchange. No. We're not talking about the stock exchange or any other exchange here. We're talking about information exchange. Obinna Anusiam organization helps companies, organizations, and government agencies succeed with audiences in Nigeria and the Nigerian diaspora. His platforms and databases drive user interaction and provide unique data and insights on Nigerian consumers and businesses. He has also led NGX in successfully developing a broad and diverse portfolio of products that attract and engage Africa-interested audiences around the world. In this interview, Obinna explains in details how his organization has been engaged in research and data-related efforts for and about the African diaspora over the last decade, and how it helps companies, organizations, and government agencies based everywhere in the world gain audiences from the Nigerian and African diaspora. Obinna Anusiam is also the founder of Club 14, a group of professionals in Silicon Valley focused on identifying resources that enrich and improve their well-being and also enable them participate in investment opportunities in the diaspora in Africa. He is highly experienced when it comes to research and data related to the African diaspora. Here he is, the well-versed Obinna Anusiam, on the Barry Media Show. Thank you, Obi, for being on the Barry Media Show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
What does NGX stand for, and what do you guys do?
So NGX actually stands for Nigeria Exchange. We started out as part of a company that we started that was focused on IT, and we saw an opportunity where we could provide content and information that helped bridge the gap between Nigeria and the diaspora. And so started off a different division called Nigeria Exchange, and our logo was NGEX, which was NG for Nigeria, EX for Exchange, and people just kept on calling us NGEX, and so we pivoted and named ourselves NGEX. For what we do, our focus really is on building platforms that enable us get data, right? And in return, we're able to offer marketing and research services to organizations that want to engage with audiences in Africa and the African diaspora.
Right. So you say you guys were in the exchange. What type of exchange you guys do?
So it's just more of information exchange, right? Not your typical like stock exchange or commodity exchange. Just the way we looked at it is, we saw early that, there was a lack of information and reliable data in Africa, and especially even in the diaspora as well. And we figured that there'd be opportunity to bridge that gap, to act as a conduit that help people understand what's going on in the diaspora and at the same time what's going on in Nigeria, and then also facilitate transfer of information and services between the diaspora and Africa.
So can you go over one more time the services you guys provide?
Primary services are around data, marketing, and research, right? Our core focus is really on being able to get data, reliable and accurate data for Nigeria and the diaspora, right? The bigger challenge that we've seen is that it's very, very difficult getting reliable data. Even when data is available, they're typically in silos in different locations. So, yes, creating platforms that allow people engage with us, and in return, we get to understand more about them, their interests and their preferences. And at the same time, being able to collect data from different sources and aggregate them into repositories that we can then mine and use for our clients. So when you look at data as the primary objective, then out of that, we're able to offer marketing and research services that are data-driven.
So how do you collect data?
For us, we take a more domain-oriented approach, which is, we try to make sure that our processes fit into the environment that we're playing in, right? So we take the multi-pronged approach, which is we have some automated processes that actually just go out and are able to collect data, using technology and automated processes. We also have manual processes. We have people that actually even go out on the streets every day and actually just collect things like addresses. And then we also look for data repositories and either partner with the owners of the repository, or if they're publicly available repositories, then we just collect that data. But the real emphasis is really on being able to collect the data and then store it in a manner that's easy to retrieve the information from and understand, right? So it's one thing, if I collect data on, let's say, the businesses in Nigeria, and I'm also collecting data on, say, the number of school children in, say, the northern part of Nigeria, I need to be able to store it in such a way that I can easily retrieve that data and perform analysis on it quickly, and it makes sense to the end user as well, even though they're disparate data sources.
And these data are being taken from both Nigeria and the United States, right?
Right. So yeah, United States and beyond, right? So primarily, the gap that we're trying to close is there's just a dearth of information on the African diaspora first, right? I mean, if we come in and say, okay, how many Nigerians are in the diaspora? How many Africans are in the diaspora? Nobody really knows. How many Nigerians are in the US? Nobody really knows. We get numbers. I think the official estimate is about 320,000 Nigerians. If you break that down across 50 states, that brings it up to 6,000 per state. And if you ask the average pardon?
On average, yes.
Yes, and if you ask the average Nigerian, some people know more than 6,000 people, right? So we know the numbers are skewed, and if you come from Africa, you can understand why the numbers are skewed, right? And the challenge that we see is that if we don't have the accurate numbers, then we can't have good representation. If we don't have good representation, then we can't get those things that are supposed to accrue to us, right? If we're, say, 1 million people, but only 300,000 being counted, then how do you get representation in a society where the numbers and proper representation of the people are actually important? I mean, if you look at the census, one of the reasons why the census is being done is to really understand who's in the country and where they are, right? So that the resources in the country can be allocated properly. So
how important NGX is for Nigerians?
We think it's very important, right, for what we do. We think, it's our core area right now is still emerging. You should, be hearing a lot of conversation around data. Data is the next oil. Data is king and things like that. But the attribution of value to that process isn't as rich as it is, say, in the Western world, right? But if you look at it, even from our own experiences now, you're starting to see people understand that, they need to make data-driven decisions. And in an environment where data is very scarce, a lot of times it's either your gut feeling or just some anecdotal evidence that's being used to make those decisions. But as things move along, right, and especially as digital and the competitive environment becomes a lot more intense, you see that understanding what's going on, who your customers are, what they're interested in, what they've been doing, activities that you can do that will actually engage them and make them, either purchase additional services or engage with your company better, right, are really necessary. But if you're only relying on your ability as a company to be able to generate that data, right, then you're lost out, right? So what ends up happening is, say in countries, so for Nigeria as an example, you have a situation where companies do their own in-house research, keep that in silos, right? And their competition does the same thing, right? And then you have, the third-party data that's supposed to come from, like, say, government and all that can augment that data, but doesn't exist. So when that doesn't exist, so for example, if you come in and you have a situation where, you're having COVID-19 ravaging Africa right now, you should be able to come in and say, okay, where do we have the most cases? How does that relate to the number of hospitals, the number of primary care facilities, the number of doctors, right, per the incidence. We should be able to look at a heat map and then, have that correlated with the number of health facilities and the resources out there. That should be an easy thing to do. But in today's Africa, that's not very easy to do.
So let's say, for instance, I have a business in the United States,
right,
and I want Nigerians to know about my business because I want to cater to them. I either want Nigerians to get my products because I feel it's good for them, or I want to go in Nigeria and sell my products because I feel like it's catered to Nigerians. So
right.
What role do you guys play in situations like that?
Yeah, so primarily what we'll start off with is making sure that we have clear alignment on your objectives, right? And then we have platforms, right, that we use to attract Nigerians, right? And then we also, like you mentioned before, we also have additional databases that we use to know and understand what Nigerians are interested in. So between our platforms, we can advertise your products on our platforms. They're targeted to, say, the Nigerian diaspora, the African diaspora, friends of Africa, friends of Nigeria, and they help. The platforms help us segment the audiences. And at the same time, we have databases that we can use, right? And using our domain knowledge and combining those with the database. So, for example, we have probably one of the largest databases of Nigerian groups or African groups around the world. And if you understand the average African and understand that they belong to groups, it becomes very effective if you use the groups as leverage to market your products. So having even just something as simple as a database and understanding which of the groups will be more receptive to your product makes it easy for us to come in and say, okay, we can either go in and represent your business in front of those groups, make pitches to them, create products or campaigns that engage the groups and offer them something in return for marketing the products to their members. That's very low cost, high impact in our environment. It may not work in another environment, but it's very effective in our environment. If you go into Nigeria, it's a very big market, but understanding, okay, what are the people's interests? What do they do? What's happening? So for example, even something as simple as just even saying events, right? We've had clients who come in and say, okay, I want to market this product, and we figure out that, okay, the church audience is the best audience to market this product to. And then we go into our events database and we're able to figure out where the largest churches are having their events over a certain period. And then we figure out how to engage with those churches and make sure that our clients' products are well represented to those audiences.
So what are some of the challenges you guys are going through right now?
Well, outside of the current, pandemic challenges with the pandemic, the bigger challenge, one, again, funding, is one challenge. I mean, I think that's a challenge that most entities face, and especially for us, since what we're doing is relatively new. But the other part is on the resources, right? One of the things that we try to do is make sure that on our technology side, because we use technology to drive a lot of what we do, we try to be cutting edge. We try to make sure that we're able to use technology to its highest efficiency. But in order to do that, you need resources, right? And you need skilled talent. Skilled talent costs money. Skilled talent is not readily available. And that's been one of the big challenges for us. But, we're finding ways where we actually go in and like last year, we launched an intern program and had some interns. We onboarded some interns and then, started using that as a way to fulfill the requirements that we have for key talent.
Are you guys in need of investors? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, definitely. I mean, our goal is basically to take this model across Africa. So we definitely need all the funding that we can get to enable us to accelerate our pace of expansion.
So what type of investors you guys are looking for?
So right now we're at the seed stage. So we're just looking for seed investors. So just investors who believe in the vision and are willing to take a chance with us, and are looking forward to a very positive data-driven future with Africa.
And in terms of technology, what type of technology is involved in your day-to-day work to make things happen?
So we do. I mean, I'm not, in charge of the technology. We have a CTO, but at least I've got the basic overview. So we do a lot of cutting edge technology where, like for example, with data is the bedrock for artificial intelligence, right? So we've even started moving into the artificial intelligence realm, right? And we've started running algorithms that help us, read data and sort the data and structure it on its own. That's one big achievement that we had last year, was developing our own proprietary algorithm where we can take, 10,000 records, and in 5 minutes we can structure it properly and have it stored in a database that we can retrieve. So it ranges all the way from, artificial intelligence technologies down to even simple things like PHP, Java, even now where you're building our apps with like Flutter and React. So we cut across the gamut because primarily our objective is to build our platforms, and these platforms come in different forms, either, websites, apps, newsletters. We started doing bots. So, some of them are, old school technology, for lack of a better word, and some of them are more cutting edge. So like on the bots end, there's a lot of, natural language processing, the artificial intelligence comes in, and then having our data as a bedrock makes it a lot easier for us to achieve a lot of those things.
You were talking about skilled talents earlier. What type of skills people have different skills? Like what type of skills, talents you guys are looking for?
For us, primarily, I think it's one. This is passion first. We believe that what we're doing is actually something to be proud of for Africa. And we want people first who have the passion and the belief in what we're doing. And then they come to the table with, the skills that will follow that. So the kind of skills we're looking for, one, people who are, quick on their feet to think, because what we're doing, I keep saying, we're not copying any playbook. There's nobody we're copying. We're making this up as we're going along. So sometimes we go out, we fail, but we try to fail fast. We fail and then we just pivot and continue. So we need people who can come in, understand that, look, this thing, we need to figure it out. We're building an African solution for Africa, right? And there's no answer to it, right? We figure out the answer as we go along. So you bring your skills. If you've got the basic computing skills, but you've got the passion, we can definitely train you, right? If you've got, if you've got years of experience and you bring the passion with it, then you definitely can help us build better products, and then you can help us train people. So the underlying skill or talent that we look for really is just having that passion and that drive to say, okay, yes, we can do it. This is new. This is cutting edge. It's not been done before, but we can do it.
So how are Nigerians reacting to your website right now and the services you provide?
It's actually been pretty positive. We've, like I said, cut across different platforms, and the reaction has been positive. We've got some resource constraints, but in the areas, especially on the data-driven end, we get a lot of very positive engagement where people actually seek us out to either provide data for them, to use in their own applications, or we provide data-driven services for them. So, for example, we have clients who want to come in and engage with the diaspora, and we have to come in and figure out how to engage, how to develop campaigns for them. And we have to go back into our databases and look at our data, look at where we're seeing current activity, and then figure out what's the best way to engage based on what we're seeing from our data, right? So as more people get to understand that our approaches are not just off the cuff, they're more driven from what we're seeing and the data that we're collecting on a day-to-day basis, the reaction has been pretty positive. So the bedrock of everything, even as we move forward, into the society, we see that data is fundamental, right? So even when you look at, self-driving cars, you look at a lot of the AI stuff coming out today, right? It's all driven from having a baseline of data. You have to know what's available. You have to have it properly annotated. And then, you can now build applications on top of that. Well, Africa is miles away from that, right? In the sense that a lot of our data, like I mentioned before, is just not collated. We just don't have data in repositories. Like if you go into the average African country and you say, okay, I want to find a list of the all the all the poultry farms in the country, it's very difficult to get, right? And if you're trying to look at the value chain and say, okay, I want to get the poultry farms, I want to get the feed farms and all that to understand the value chain from, corn all the way to an egg, that's very difficult to get. But that information is absolutely necessary. So how do you go about getting that information? In today's world, you have to actually put, rubber to the road. Somebody has to go out physically and look for this information. There's just not a place that you can go and grab the information and dump it into a database and then just move forward. Being able to figure out the logistics around how do I get people in place? How do I structure them? How do I map out the country and have people go out and report in data, collect that data and store it in properly, and then be able to transform it into things that applications can use? That's pretty challenging, right? So if you look at a country like, let's say, Nigeria, which would probably have, small businesses in the millions, how do you get that data? Even if you can get data, how do you structure it properly? So that's where we see the biggest challenge, and that's where we see the biggest opportunity. So definitely, so if you think about it, right, Google makes Uber's life very easy because in Africa, right, Uber uses Google Maps, right? And Google Maps works because Google has done the work. Well, what I'm saying is that when you look at the concentration of businesses, I use Nigeria as an example again, you will find that Google's coverage is concentrated around the larger cities, right? Which, is expected, so you would expect, Google, you'd have more businesses in the larger cities. And so, of course, Google should focus first in the larger cities, which is fine. But then if you try to go outside, like Nigeria has 36 states, if you go to maybe the other 25 states or 28 states that Google doesn't have good coverage, you find that, okay, there are also businesses there, but nobody knows, or there's no repository that tells you about those businesses. So like I was saying, it's very difficult. You probably pay a lot to say you want to find out where all the poultry farms are in any African country, right? Google probably can tell you where they are in the largest cities, but what about the smaller cities? Now, if you're the government or you're trying to do some development or stimulate the small business sector, you have to know that information. Question is, how do you get that information? Right? For some companies like Google tries to do a lot of things with automation. So if you look at out here, they have the street view cars for getting businesses, say in the US. They actually send out the postcard. You go online, you register, they send you a postcard to confirm. You go back into the website and you confirm, and then they know that, okay, I can match this individual to this business. That's verification. They can't replicate it that way in Africa because, those systems are just not in place. So even where they're in place, people are just not engaged that way. So what ends up happening is Google's got to go on the streets as well. So they actually go out and actually go house to house and get addresses down. And at the end of the day, they need all that because once they get that in, they can feed it into their Google Maps product. And with their Google Maps product, they can now retail that to people like Uber, the food delivery product, the food delivery companies, the logistics companies and all that. And so they make a return on their effort.
How can one get a hold of you?
So our official website is ngex.org. And if you visit there, you have contact information there. You can learn more about what we do and actually visit some of our platforms as well from there.
And how many platforms do you have altogether?
We currently have about 6 platforms.
And can you list those platforms, please?
So we have the NGX Business Directory. We have NigerianDictionary.com. We have App Nigeria. We have the Nigerian Daily Newsletter. We have ifunaya.com, which is the dating website. And then we have Diaspora Newsletter.
Can you explain in detail what each platform does?
Yes. So the NGX Business Directory is a directory of Nigerian businesses across the world. People go there to find, contact information for the businesses. They, search by keyword, category, business name. So the goal with that is just to make sure that we're the one-stop source for any information related to businesses, Nigeria-related businesses anywhere in the world. The NigerianDictionary.com is what we call our Friends of Nigeria website. Basically, it's a website that promotes Nigerian culture. It allows people come in and get translations of Nigerian words, learn about Nigerian culture, and make friends around Nigerian culture. Our goal in there was to attract people that we consider to be friends of Nigeria. We saw a lot of conversation from people who were not Nigerians, but interested in Nigeria. And so we decided that if we built something like Nigerian Dictionary that allowed people to come in and post words for translation, have people translate the words, make friends over that, would be something that would increase the universe that we can push our material to. The app Nigeria is an app that enables you receive Nigeria-related information regardless of where you are in the world. It understands your location and serves you location-aware information that's specific to your location. So if you're in London, you will find Nigeria-related information for London. So you will see Nigerian restaurants in London, Nigerian events in London, Nigerian groups in London, and if we're not able to serve that, then we default to Nigeria. Ifunaya.com is a dating website that just promotes, dating between people, Nigerians that are looking for love interests within the Nigerian community and beyond. Right? It's tailored to the way that we think that the Nigerians look for people. So we have filters that allow Nigerians actually filter down to the qualities and attributes that we have seen that people actually look for. Then the Nigeria Daily Newsletter is just a newsletter that's a curated list of Nigerian news that goes out daily. And the Diaspora Newsletter is a curated list of diaspora-related news that goes out once or twice a week.
So before we end this interview, is there anything else you want to say?
I just want to add, that I think, our mission, which is to make sure that, we provide reliable and accurate data for Nigeria and Africa and the diaspora. I think it's a mission that is, which its time has come, right? I think it's something that we need to get on the bandwagon. Africa is behind, right? And a lot of new things that are coming up, emerging technologies and all that, are going to be based on having data as a fundamental aspect of everything. And it is something that I don't believe that we can necessarily do alone. It needs to be something done as a collective. The government has to do its own part. Private sector has to do its own part. The NGOs have to do their own part. And even the individuals on their own have to do their own part. So collectively, we can make this happen, right? The more we know about what we need to know, the better off for everybody. We can hold people accountable. We can drive more efficiency out of our resources, right? And we can make Africa and the African diaspora a better place for us and for our future.
Great. I mean, this is wonderful, man. Thank you very much for all this great information.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to my guest, Obinna Anusiam. Thanks to you for listening. Visit his website at www.ngex.com. The Barry Media Show takes you places that you have never imagined. The Barry Media Show inspires and gives you the feel needed to make your dream a reality and take the future into your own hands. Please leave a review. It will definitely help. You can find me on Instagram, Barry Medias, and on Twitter at Barry Medias.